Hey traders, this is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Friday, December 4th, just after the close here. So, on Fridays, what I like to do is, of course, summarize today's price action and talk a little bit about that. And then we'll talk about this week's performance, too, in terms of what were the leading and underperformers of the week. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the trades and overall market feel. There's a bunch of things to kind of talk about today, and let me start with the performance for the day. Uh, Impressive, I would just kind of say that the small caps were up 2.3% for the day. I was not expecting a day like this today to see the small caps up 2.3% for the day. SPY finished just under 1%. Interesting, the Q's kind of underperformed for the day. That was, a lot of areas. If you kind of look to this little value growth performance tracker that I've got here on the bottom of the screen, just to kind of look, and you could see today was more about value, right? If you look at the day, first of all, it was really good participation. But you had oil and energy names up 7%. This was my chart of the day that I sent out in and one of the things that we do every day at Tribeca Trade Group is I send out an index roadmap out as well as the chart of the day. And I included energy stocks, because for me, I've not been an energy bull, especially traditional energy. I've liked the clean energy areas and especially solar stocks over the last couple years, I would say at this point. But really, the energy stocks are doing something different. So I actually participated a little bit in some energy trades. But I mean, these things, that's a big day, up 8.4% for a sector, right? One name, when we see that in one name, which we are seeing these days, different stocks and different groups, up, sometimes more than 10%, especially in the small cap area. But energy stocks were up 8% for the day. Then you also had metals and mining, which have been on an absolute tear. So that's really where this market has been the last couple of days. And I didn't even get to the semiconductors, but they were up 2.9% for the day. So like I said, really strong breath. And value names did outperform a bit, but there was a little bit of something for everybody today. There was various different growth names that did well today. Obviously, Docu went up on earnings. Snow was unbelievable. I don't own any of this one, but really impressive. From the earnings rebound. But I mean, here's an example of a stock up 14% and a big stock, right? So up 14% for the day, 47 points. And the way that this market has been is that, with this participation, a couple observations I would say is that, again, the market breadth has been very strong. And the option activity, if you've been watching the tape and option flows, it's been just crazy. I was illustrating that we do a thoughts ahead of the weekend Q&A session at 1 o'clock, and I was just kind of showing the trading room that, you know, sometimes you're getting three different trade ideas in a minute, in terms of aggressive option flow. And it does become a little bit challenging with all of these movers to kind of pick and choose which ones you're going to attempt to participate in or try trade, because you'll literally see a couple trades that are hitting the tape in terms of option flow, and you're like, hey, that's a pretty good signal. And then you'll see another good signal a couple minutes later. So, and the way that how fast this market is moving, there's not a lot of time to really say at the moment, hey, is this a trade that I want to get into? Because the the longer you think about it, some of these names are just taking off. So I would say, in conclusion to that, regarding how much option flow there is, which is getting completely out of hand, in my opinion, the amount of it, and again, the participation. It's not just one group; it's a whole bunch of groups, and in addition to that, the yeah, I mean the speed is just is very quickly. Yeah, so I think what helps is, sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. But what really helps is kind of doing a little bit of homework, right? We talked about that. We had a couple of member webinars. We had one that was really good last night with one of our long-standing members, and what he was talking about was doing homework while the market is closed, because that does help you to kind of figure out a game plan before this market is jumping all over the place, and they're jumping all over one another with option flow. But like, here's a couple examples, right? And I did not take this trade, but let me see if I can show you just an example. Right, so this one, I don't know why this one came to mind, but if you look at the size of this trade, right, this is January 230 calls. This was $800,000 trade of Burlington, right? So Burlington was not one that I was like planning to get in on, so I did not trade this one. Although it's something that I'll watch, but I had a game. I've had a game plan for certain names that I like. So the semiconductors are obviously something that's been pretty much an amazing move over the last couple weeks. And the amount of option flow that we're seeing in names like Taiwan Semiconductor, look at all the Taiwan Semiconductor opening orders. And what's a little bit different about this stuff, well, number one, there's still short-term calls, which I started to see some trades today that are a little bit further out than a couple weeks, which gives me a little bit more comfort taking a trade. But look at all these opening trades that are going up, and they're not small trades. Sometimes we see like the little option flow where it's like, okay, it's a small cap name, and it's like a $50,000 trade or a $70,000 trade. Look at the money behind this: $250,000. $200,000, 245,000, 224, 301, 234. I mean, so this is not like little guy stuff, right? Another one in here, 304,000. So it's pretty crazy to see this. Also, Skyworks is another name. Now, Skyworks, if you remember, I got into this trade, made some money in it, and when I got out of it, I looked at the chart like a day later. I'm like, hey, this thing still looks kind of good. Still looks good to me. But you could see this even like going up at the end of the day, right? Not even at the beginning of the day, right? $200,000, $172,000, $262,000. And this is what Skyworks looks like. So again, I made this on the turn, and I was observant enough to say, hey, maybe you want to get back into this thing, because I've been having a habit sometimes of, I get into a trade, I make money in it, I'm happy, and it could just be the start of the move. So I've been trying to stay in trades, but look at this, up 4.5% today in Skyworks. So this was a nice re-entry trade for me. And again, this was just on 11:30 that I got on this trade, so just a few days ago. So very impressive there. I think Taiwan Semiconductor, even though it's a little bit stretched, I think it could go up further. Qualcomm was a name that we talked about earlier in the week. I mean, up 5% on a move higher. So, again, a lot of strength here, and some of these names, like even Intel, like I missed this Intel move. Not that I would have traded Intel, because I don't really believe in it, because I think it's an underperformer. But big move in Intel, big move in Micron, huge moves. Western Digital, STC. I'm sorry, STM is the one that we've seen repeat call buying in. I'm also in this not Taiwan, but Tower Semiconductor. From earlier in the week. And again, you have to kind of pick and choose a little bit, because I don't think if you go into 4 or 5 of these things, first of all, you're not diversified, but they're it's hard to manage too, especially unless you have a team of traders behind you who can watch these things. It's been impressive. I'll tell you what's interesting too about this group. A couple that where most of the retail Like Lam Research is another one, right? Just unbelievable moves, unbelievable. The names that retail traders tend to talk about, and like AMD's doing okay, and I think it could possibly take another like higher next week. No problem. But it's not one of the outperformers. Same thing with Nvidia. Nvidia is not even is still inside value. So the reason why I bring this up is because it makes sense to kind of look outside of what everybody is always talking about on Twitter, right? If all you're looking at is Nvidia and AMD, you miss the boat. Now, again, AMD has done fine. I traded that one too over the last week, but there's been better and bigger performers than the two that everybody seems to talk about on Twitter. Okay, so doing your homework and even subscribing to a service that kind of points these things out to you in terms of performance. But that's just one group. Like I could talk for about another 30 minutes about stocks for the day, which I won't do that. Um, but another group has been amazing to me is not only this, but the metal space, and not the gold miners, but the FCX, the Cliffs. I mean, they've all blown out to the upside. Even U.S. Steel. Look at U.S. Steel. It's up 9.7% today. What's a couple of the other ones that I've been that I Vail has been another one that's been absolutely on fire. So steel, uh, copper miners. I feel like there's the other one that I brought up the other day was Tech Resources. Look at Tech Resources up 8% today. So again, a lot of strength. Now, when I came into the day, here was my thought. I like to kind of go over my thought process. I came into this market, and I post a couple of people that I really like to follow on Twitter, and I hope they're okay with me quoting some of the things that they said. But Trader Mentality said all for the push to push higher here. But we are stretched on several metrics from that warrant some trim trail hedge mentality, in my opinion. Not a great environment for new upside entries. And listen, this is what I kind of came into today, this morning, saying, I want to start paring down risk. I think that the sentiment, right? We all know that sentiment is really hot right now. So I said I happen to agree with this view. I'm all for the market going higher too, but I think the internals under the hood are getting cooked. I would think a small pullback is in order here, and we'll make some adjustments today. So I tried to do that today. I'll show you like my trading blotter in just a second. But I also agree with this. So I think one of the things as traders and risk managers is to try to be ahead of the crowd a little bit and to plan ahead. I really liked what she said too, and I hope she's okay with me quoting her. We all know sentiment is quite giddy. There are precious few sentiment indicators that are now that are excuse me. There are precious few sentiment indicators that are not at an extreme. Even the AAII saw the bears drop to their lowest level since January. We have seen it go lower. So I wouldn't call this extreme, but sentiment is quite one-sided. Now, what I like her next sentence, so again, we know that there's various different sentiment indicators, like the put call ratio is way, way bullish. This can sometimes give us, a little bit of a snapback, to the downside when there's that much complacency in the market. Again, not always, it's not 100%, and I think I went over this the other day, but I mean, there's not a lot of people that are buying puts right now, right? It's very, very complacent out there. The market is getting, I would say, priced to perfection. That's another way that I would phrase it. What she said, I think, is very important in her next sentence. If breadth were poor, or if breadth falters, it would be problematic for the market. That's why I am watching some of these favored groups. I think that is a great way to, think about this market a little bit. What I talked about in Wednesday's video was looking for divergences, right? As this price continues to go higher in the overall market, as the price continues to get, pushed further to the upside, one of the things that I look at is the RSI too. We're close to a 70, so we're getting there, guys. We are getting there. It's a 68 in the Qs. Anything above 70 is overbought in the relative strength index. I'm looking at the bottom of the screen, by the way. The IWM is a 73. All right, so keep these things in the back of your mind. To the phrase that I always say is not get over the tips of your skis in terms of risk. Now, what's going to happen? If you want to participate in this market and kind of stay in this market, which is tough because what are you going to do? You're going to sit on your hands and not participate when, stocks are ripping, some of the ones that I mentioned up, 4 to 8%. It's tough. You can't really just sit on your hands and watch all this momentum take place. But I think at the end of the day, what you want to do is, and again, I'm not giving out any recommendations. This video is for information purposes only. But I think just being cognizant that, number one, taking off some trades so that you're not overexposed, and which I don't think is a bad idea, especially if you're trading options. And number two, just realizing that the market will eventually come in a little bit, and you have to be somewhat prepared for that and realize that the day that that happens, you might be down a little bit, right? And the whole thing is, right, if we go back to what happened, which I referenced to on Wednesday, in July, August, you could have said at any points in time here that we're overbought. And then, if you would have went to all cash, then you would have missed this big rip up at the end. Now, was it worth it to stay in this market, to then suffer through maybe this day? Now, this was pretty big, right? That day hurt a little bit if you were overexposed. So that's why I'm saying, as we're getting to that overbought territory, take a look at your exposure. My objective is to participate, but not go crazy with with adding new positions here. All right, and some things I'm being a little bit contrarian as well. So let's, I like to not only tell you my thoughts, but also tell you what I kind of did for the day. So you could see, I did put on a couple new things here, but you could see I was very adamant about taking targets today. This SE worked out pretty well, right? Really gave a fake out yesterday. But look at this thing. You had to be patient. This thing was tough yesterday. It got to the highs and got smoked. Well, today was up 8.3%. So really nice. So you had to be patient with it and stick with it a little bit. Impressive move for SE, and congratulations to those who stayed in this stock. I took some profits yesterday. I was long calls and stock, and I took some profits and calls, and then I took off the rest of my option position this morning. You could see, and I took some profits on pre-market too, and then I let the rest run. So I'm happy with that. But here I got into some energy. Again, something different for me. Took a target in it. Right, so paid, sold 640, paid 595. I also got into this NOV. I mentioned that there was some more block type trades on the tape. Case in point, NOV. Right, because I am looking to stay into some positions for more than a couple days, which is kind of like how I've been trading. But look at this. This was not against, sometimes when we see a big block trade like this, it's against shares. But I checked, it was not against shares. May 17 calls. Now, again, sometimes with these energy stocks, we already have a preconceived notion here. But I think covering up the symbol might help a little bit. Hey, listen, it's doing something different. It's above the 200-day moving average. It's above value. And I'll stay long versus 1366. Right? And we'll see where this thing wants to go. All right? Again, to me, it's acting different. So I'm participating. right? And again, being a little bit contrarian. Because why? Because I do think as well that we're going to continue to see some of these rotations. I've said this before, but I'll repeat it a little bit here too. I don't want, like, I know everybody always talks about growth versus value. At this point, at this stage in the game, I don't want to be all in growth and I don't want to be all in value. I want to have a mix and I want to trade, be a little, I don't want to be like fully diversified where I've got to own every sector, but I just don't want to be in one particular growth because I think that we will continue to see these rotations. So I would rather just own good setups. Alley's another one where, I decided to take it off today. So this is kind of how my conviction has been, right? But if we look at what's happening in interest rates, TLT looks like it's breaking down. When TLT goes down, or ZB, the long bond, when this goes down, interest rates go up. It's good for the bank. So I like to have exposure maybe to one bank here. And I think Alley's, the name for me. I also like this SIVB, which may be ready for its next leg next week. But, it's got that as a catalyst for me with interest rates going up right now on the long end of the curve. All right, so I took that one off and I said, you know what? I'm watching this move in interest rates. TLT was down 1.5% today. I'm going to try to stick with it a little bit longer. ATVI was a name that a couple members, TTG members, brought up. Really nice move here. This could continue. I got out of it today. So why did I get out of this trade completely today? Because I've got to manage my risk. I can't be in them all. And especially, as I've been talking about with this crazy option activity and the fast moves, in case we do get a little bit of volatility. I don't want to be, running around with too much exposure at the wrong time. So again, I'm not predicting, by the way, any type of volatility or a dip at this point. I'm just trading what's in front of me and trying to manage it well. All right, so Pure Storage is another one too. So again, that's the thing too. As long as I'm seeing decent setups, I'm going to participate. Look at this Pure Storage, up 8.5%. Now, what's particularly attractive to this, because this saw all kinds of option activity today too, but if you look at the weekly chart, which the week is now closed, this is the first close above the value area for the year. So yeah, I'm going to give it a shot. This is as clean a setup as I can come up with. And setting your stop to just inside value, which is 1970. So really nice looking chart here, in my opinion. And everybody loves Kathy Wood's in it. Kathy Wood's in it. Yes, she is in it as well. So you could use that as another factor, I guess, if you like. So I'm in that. Net took some targets in that one. I did take off Skyworks. This is the second trade. Again, just doing what I think I should be doing. Look at CMGO today too. This was a trade that I got into earlier in the week, and this looks like a really nice setup too. Look at just first close. Well, it did close above value and gave a little bit of a. I guess I would call that maybe consolidating a little bit back and forth, but so my ultimate target, and we'll see if I take the whole thing off if it gets here. But there's a 1246 1 hour VPOC that I'm aiming for. A lot of people were trading Fastly today. Look at what Fastly did on the 1 hour VPOC. Right? I saw a lot of people thinking that Fastly was going to go to the moon today. Nope. Just to the 1 hour VPOC, right? So these are great for taking targets. Now it did get way up and above, but at least if you're being disciplined, you could take some of that money off at that virgin point of control, right? That got taken out today. Again, great places. Right here was one to the downside, right? Price took this out and reverted. Again, virgin point of control where a lot of volume was previously. But we had yet to return. All right, so that's a little bit of my trades, and we'll move along to the performance for the week. What did I do with the performance for the week? So we'll talk just a minute about this. SPY, again, good participation. IWM up 2.1%, Q's up 2.1%. Bonds were the only thing that were down 3.1% on the macro level here on the top line. And whoa, too much of a zoom. Looking for the week performance. Interesting, clean energy. Clean energy was hot for about 3 weeks in a row. A couple weeks it was up about 9-10%. Was the worst performing sector this week. So was solar. Home builders underperformed pretty decently. Possibly that's a little bit of that interest rate effect. They were strong yesterday, but I think they were kind of weak today. Where did they finish for the day? Yeah, they were one of the worst performing groups. So no follow through from yesterday, down 1.1%. I was kind of wondering about that. I saw how strong the home builders were yesterday, and I was wondering if I should, participate in that. I did not, and I think in the short term, I made the right decision. Chinese internets were also weak this week, down 2.8%. What else was strong? Again, the semiconductors were up 6%. Banks were strong. Biotech was strong. So again, if you look at most of these groups, not all, I would put the semiconductors more in growth bucket. But again, a lot of value outperformed this week, whereas growth I think outperformed the week before. And there's your performance below. The Greek ETF was up over 10%. So if you were long Greek names, congratulations. All right, so that's that. Just to kind of finish regarding how our week watch list went. Very strong, up 3.3%. Best performer Spotify was up 15%. So again, there's a program I tweeted out earlier. I invest in all these names on Monday, and I hold them through the week. I sell them at 3 o'clock on Friday, and then I jump into a SPY trade. So that is one of the programs that we run at Tribeca Trade Group, and I think that one of the things that I hear a lot from traders is that where's our resources channel here? One of the things that I hear from traders sometimes is that, hey, sometimes I can trade full time. Sometimes, I get busy with work and I can't trade full time. We really try to cater at the Tribeca Trade Group to different traders, right? Obviously, I'm in the room. I get in the office here on Wall Street in New York at about 10 after 7. I'm in the office and I'm here all day long reading the tape and so forth. And I'm trading all day long, and some days obviously more active than others. But I also run portfolios for the part-time traders, right? So if you're a part-time trader and you can't trade, I came up with this system a couple months ago, and I'm really I'm in love with it because I put in work every weekend and I put together a watch list. So to actually monetize what you're doing. And I trade this through a system called M1 Finance, where I'm owning the watch list through the week. And then what I do is I sell the watch list 3 o'clock on Friday by SPY, so I have exposure to the market. And then I get out of SPY on Monday morning and I go into the new watch list. So we'll be putting together a new watch list this weekend, and I'll be trading that. And again, the setups are based on the indicator that you see on the charts. I'm looking for names that are breaking out of consolidation, breaking above value, and my goal every week, and we're doing a pretty good darn job at it, is outperforming the S&P every week. That's the goal. Now, of course, if the market dips a little bit, we're going to be subject to that because this is a strategy where I want the exposure all the time. I'm not going to market time except for the watch list, but I'm going to have exposure all the time in stock, right? So this strategy has worked very well for me in regard to being tactical in my trading account and then having exposure in the TTG trend portfolio, which again is also just stocks, right? But instead of always trying to time the market, I want to be in some quality names, and I also want to be short-term tactical while I still have overall exposure. I'm holding the exposure constant. All right. So, until we see some concrete sell signals in the market, that's how it's going to be. And again, this is nice because it caters to different investors in the trading room. Again, especially those who can't, do day trading or even shorter term swing trading. I think it really caters to multiple types of traders that we have. So anyway, that's it for this week's video. A really great week. Like I said, it was webinar week here at Tribeca Trade Group. We had 2 different webinars this week and some great feedback on them too. So it was a lot of fun. All right, guys, have a great weekend, and I'll see you Monday.